Hello and welcome. Jan here, live on Media and Marketing Podcast. Super exciting broadcast today. I got another expert. We like to interview experts here online, and it's a lot about digital marketing, media and marketing, hence the name. And a lot of Facebook discussions here, a lot of process systems, tools, resources. We have demos. And today I'm lucky to finally get some time with the amazing Jason Howe live from Singapore. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me here today on the show.
Yeah, likewise. I'm really a real pleasure. I know we've sort of been trying to find the time, and I'm glad we did. So today we're going to really talk about how you fill enrollment pipelines in the education and training world, which is really the mastery that Jason brings to the table. And I've followed Jason for a while, actually, and he's an author and writer. And actually, I loved your recent post out on Social Media Examiner about scaling Facebook ads, and clearly a real expert here on the line today, and also a lot of experience from just being an entrepreneur. It's such a struggle, when you first come out the gate. Hey, I'm going to quit my corporate world or whatever you're doing and go from one state to another, and that state being an entrepreneur and entrepreneurship with its ups and downs and its risks and rewards. And so Jason has a lot of experience in business, but certainly Facebook and, as I said, education and training. So we're going to kind of dig through and kind of drive a little bit on this. But let's start with you, Jason, on this sort of journey a little bit, not just your background in terms of what you're doing now, but what kind of led you up to this? Where do you come from, and what's your story?
Thank you again for having me here. So, John, this is my 7th year doing this. So we just completed 6 full years, coming to a good 7 years. And where it kind of started for me was back when I was really in university. I was just a first year student and just figuring out what I wanted to do in my life. I didn't want to go through 4 years of university, starting really hard and having a great degree and not knowing what I wanted to do in life. So I kind of started reading and engaging a lot more in the tech startup community. And I think back then, things like Lean Startup and all the tech startup funding, Series A, Series B stuff were really, really interesting. So I tried doing one on my own, and I got stuck. But when I was stuck with one particular idea, I realized that when I look back at my life, or I look back at what I was pretty much doing for 6 months or a year, I was pretty much just taking the idea and selling to potential investors. Like the whole time, I was just doing marketing. So then I figured out that, hey, I really, really enjoy marketing. So what I did was I came across this article by Tim Ferriss called, I think, something like 9 Steps to Hacking Credentials in Any Field That You Want to Go Into.
Oh.
So at a point, I read the article and I was like, okay, I'm going to pick social media marketing. And given the fact that I don't have a degree, I don't have any formal credentials, like I needed to start from scratch. So the article really drew me in, and I executed every single thing that Tim Ferriss recommended. I wrote about 100 blog posts in a year. I went out to networking sessions and found people, and I found my first clients in that way. My article got the attention of people, like the founder of Agorapulse, Emmerich, who introduced me to Ad Espresso, Post Planner, and Mari Smith, John Loomer, and the whole world. And that was really how my career started. I landed my first clients because they read the articles that I wrote for Agorapulse and things like that. So it was crazy.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's great. So a lot of writing. And did you have any writing experience, or was it just sort of thoughts and trying to streamline all the madness into kind of Jason Howe world and forward?
Yeah, so I had no prior blog article or journalism writing skills. It was purely just writing in terms of my opinion. But I have a data or math side to me. So I like doing math. I like numbers. So I wrote a lot about technical side of Facebook. And that's why it caught the eye of Emmerich and a couple of other people, because very few people would go down to really investigating the numbers and figuring out what those numbers actually mean. And back then, Facebook reach is different from the Facebook reach you see in Facebook ads today. It's very different in terms of the measurement. It's different in terms of the meaning and things like that. So I think a lot of us are trying to figure out what those metrics actually meant. And I think those articles that I wrote early on really, really helped to gain some attention.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah, math and science. I mean, we talk about this really a lot or every day, and with clients, and I know you do too, which is sort of the idea of math on one side, and I know we're talking about different levels of math here, but KPIs and metrics, and then psychology on the other side, minding or mirroring the two, or blending and understanding those two sides of a very complex world, really, with so many advertising platforms and so many capabilities, or sort of areas really where people can engage from their mobile devices, tablets, desktop systems, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat. It gets complex, but really at the end of the day, I know you and I agree that math and psychology has to be sort of at the core. But that's great to understand that you actually wrote that many articles. Now, one quick question before we move forward. If somebody was to start out and kind of follow your path, do you recommend that as a strategy, like just start writing, or would you do it differently today if you started today?
Yeah, so that's a really great question because back then there were very few blogs that were writing stuff on Facebook that were honestly worth reading. I would say Jon Rognerud was probably one of the very few, and the competition back then was so much easier than what we see today. If I were to start again today, what I would have done slightly differently is that apart from just writing on my own blog, which what was pretty much most of what I did in the past, I would actually pitch to publications early on and start writing for the likes of Social Media Examiner and start getting plugged into the community so that there is traffic, so that there's recognition, so that there is more credibility to what you do. So that's for sure. I don't think that there is any other better medium or way of proving your expertise early on than writing. Of course, attending podcast interviews or being able to conduct Facebook Live interviews and things like that to talk about what you do is great, but none of them actually have the kind of search engine optimization or the search engine potential as writing, which is why I think that if I were to start again today, I would still continue to write, but I would focus a lot more on the marketing side of content marketing. Instead of trying to push out 100 articles, I might focus on just 30 in a year, but I will focus a lot more on pushing that 30 articles out to other people as well.
Yeah, exactly. So outreach in a general sense, but also very specifically to certain media or certain locations or certain sort of authority destinations that you want to be seen on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. So, hey, big tip, guys and gals, writing. And of course, writing helps to position you as a writer for ads, for landing pages, for content, for email, all the things that we do in marketing. So it's not just, throwing out content for sake of content, but, learning the craft and writing every day if you can, no matter what it is. So that's a great tip. Now, as you moved forward, then you started getting sort of notoriety, and you started getting these, seeing these sort of destinations, authority destinations. What led you to the field that you're in now in terms of, we talk a lot about niching and how important that is. Was there something with your background that tied you to education and training?
I think there were kind of two. One was kind of luck because in 2016 or early 2016, my business kind of ran into some trouble where I was unable to retain clients and I had no way of generating leads for myself. So I reached out to a friend called Dennis Yu, and Dennis and I talked. And Dennis at that point in time was also at a point where he had a lot of clients, but there was no operations systems in his team to fully fulfill those clients. A lot of these clients were actually your Forbes, 500 brands and your Inc. 5,000 brands and large brands that people recognized. So yeah, so at a point it was opportunistic for me to say, oh yeah, let me come in and help you, our lead teams, and I'll help you build your SOPs. And we worked together for a year, and he put me on all of the education and finance brands that I was working with. And that was great. It was a great experience. And in that year, I kind of fell in love with education brands, what they were doing. I found that it was really meaningful. It was definitely way more meaningful than trying to sell a bunch of clothes and things like that. No offense to those who are doing e-commerce, but like to me, it just felt like, it was a meaningful kind of work that I was doing. At the end of the day, these are not just numbers that I'm driving, but there's meaning to those numbers that I'm driving. So this is basically the first one. And the second one, I guess, is really kind of what I mentioned earlier regarding the meaning, because when I left the company and left the partnership eventually and thought about what I want to do in the future, I asked myself what niche do I really want to go into, and I tried a lot of different things, healthcare. Um, I did a lot of online courses and things like that, but fundamentally it all came back down to education. We do online courses as well, but those online courses are also tied into education. We do motivational speech events, things like that as well, but those are also, at the end of the day, tied back into education. So as long as there's an education angle to it, it is something that we do. That's why we try to be a little broader in that sense. But the fundamental bottom line is education for us.
That's very cool. Yeah, and Dennis, he's a friend also. Dennis and I have been on stages together. He's a great guy and good to know. And I actually didn't know about the Blitzmetrics connection. So that's great. That's great. Yeah, and also when we talk about education, it's fairly broad, but I know you're dealing with schools and universities. It falls under the same umbrella.
Yeah, exactly. So most of our clients are actually higher ed educations.
Yeah.
Higher ed institutions. We work with a couple of career schools as well. We also work with some online courses and things like that. But yeah, the main bread and butter for us is still the higher ed institutions that we work with right now.
Yeah, I see. Great. And ultimately, as you exited the partnership there, is that when your current site got established? Let me see here if I can open this up. This is agencyj.co, guys and gals. If you're seeing this live, if you're listening, agencyj.co, we'll find out more information about this. But is that what came out of that?
So this website only came out slightly later on, just because in 2017 it was a little bit of a transition year for me. I had basically scaled back on my activity and thought about what I wanted to do in life. So when I mentioned, really wanting to do education and things like that, it wasn't something that instinctively happened for me. I did have spend some time thinking to myself what I want to do in life and things like that before, everything came together for me.
I see. Yeah, and I know you had mentioned before we jumped on this site is changing here in the next few weeks or month. So I'm excited to see that as well. Now, what we're going to talk about next is interesting because, as I said, understanding customer journeys. We talk about this all day long when we're in discussions with clients. But as it comes to entrepreneurs and folks who want to start up their business, maybe they're early stage, or maybe they have, struggled, frankly, which, most entrepreneurs do, out the gate, certainly, but also along the way. That's why mentorships and, training programs, courses, all these things, networking events, all this stuff that you do to kind of get to the next level is certainly very important. But what would you recommend are the things that you would do to use Facebook in this example to, perhaps you can even use some examples of how you do this now when you start reaching out or developing programs for clients to really start filling the pipelines. You probably have a system and a process for doing that. If you could take us through it.
Yeah, definitely. So first of all, I know we are talking about Facebook for the most part today, but first of all, the number one thing that I think all schools and all companies should do is not to do any form of Facebook ads just yet. The first thing that everyone should set up is to set up a search campaign that targets people who search for the exact brand name or the business name. So let's say if we are running ads for Agency J, we want to make sure that before we go into Facebook and generate leads, we are targeting people who search for Agency J in Google, and that's really important. Like, it's one of the lowest hanging fruits available to any business that can generate 10, 20, up to 100 times ROI if you do it well. And I know a lot of good brands out there who are, really, really established, but even so, they sometimes lose out on traffic because of the fact that their search engine result is not the first, and they don't beat on their own search term as well. Well, competitors find sneaky ways to come into the play, so they end up losing the traffic and sending these people to affiliate links or sending these people to competitors instead of bringing them directly to the website when those people are already searching for them. So the number one thing I highly recommend everyone to do, whether you're doing education or not, is definitely to bid on your name, just so that you appear in number one of the search term whenever someone looks for you and has the potential or intention to want to sign up for your program.
I see. And a
Yeah,
quick question on that, is that primarily Google, or is it Google Bing and Google Display, or is it YouTube, or is it just really search Google?
it's purely search for us. Yeah, so
Okay.
we are seeing a little bit of traction with YouTube, and we know that there are people actually searching terms on YouTube. But usually, what happens on YouTube is when someone searches for something on YouTube, is usually to find out how to do something.
Yeah.
So the search intent is still slightly different as compared to searching directly for a brand, which is what we usually do on Google or Bing. So, if Bing is huge for you or if you have the budget to go into Bing, I definitely recommend you guys to go into Bing. For small businesses, I think they can just spend anywhere between $100 to $300 a month on Google search on their brand keywords, and they might not even expand the budget. If they're slightly bigger, I of course recommend doing it a little bit more. So we help one of the largest training organizations in the world to do this right now, and we realized they have never bid on their branded keywords before. So we just recently launched about a couple of months ago branded keywords on their name, and it was crazy because we were just spending about $1,000 to $2,000 a month, and even so, like we had more traffic than $1,000 to $2,000 could feel. And from that $1,000 to $2,000, we were making about 20 times ROAS directly, just because they're so popular
Yeah.
and people were just searching for the brand all over. And the average position for our ad is not even one, because there were a lot of competitors like sneakily coming into play, sneakily slotting themselves in on top of us and things like that. So that's a competition that we're dealing with right now.
Interesting. And for the companies who have products, would you also early stage implement like a Google Shopping just to get the presence there as well?
Exactly. Yep. That's absolutely what we recommend doing.
Okay. And then let's say you do the search, which I think is a phenomenal tip, guys and gals, if you haven't done it before. But do you develop a full strategy of, okay, we got to test a few versions of the ad and we got to drive it to a specific landing page? Or is it more like get the ad up, phase one, drive them to the home page, make sure the pixels are firing, and then kick off a retargeting campaign on search and Facebook? Or do you not go there right away?
Yeah. So basically, we try to optimize for speed when it comes to execution. So the easiest way to get around all of this, and you don't even need your clients to review it, is to basically search for your client's brand term on Google right now, figure and look at like, what are the words there, and just replicate the same whole thing. All the headlines, all the descriptions, all the links in the search ad as the first version, and let it run. And just based on that alone, you should be getting traffic and you should be getting conversions. And then you can start optimizing from there. So you can replace it with a lead magnet instead and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. And then you get the incredible mining of data and search terms report in Google and whatnot. There's some additional benefits right out the gate.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so that's step one, and that's a phenomenal tip right there. I think that's like you said, it's underutilized and not recognized as very powerful. What would be the next thing that you do then?
Yeah. So if it is an established brand, we usually start working on the remarketing strategy. So as you might have seen some of my posts as well with the Facebook groups, we usually implement a 6 to 7 part remarketing strategy that lasts about 30 days. These days, we have tried stretching it out to 90 days because we have started seeing people converting for up to 90 days after the first click or first visit on a website. So what we do right now is we go through 6 different parts and we address objections one at a time. So we think about what happens when someone first understands or first visits our website. What is it that they are thinking about? What are some of the things that we want to tell them? What are some of the messages that we want them to know? So usually it has to do with authority. So in the first 3 days, we might show them and talk to them some results on how many people we have trained, how many people have graduated, what the results are, job placement rates, salaries, things like that, just to position ourselves as like a great brand or great institution for them to enroll into.
Yeah.
So that's 3 days, right? And the next 3 days could be kind of like a short testimonial from a student, just to, get them engaged and build that bond with them, so that, hey, like I kind of know an alumni, I kind of know what your school is about and things like that. And then in the third part, we might do something like an in-house interview with one of the faculty members, just for them to ask them like, hey, how's your experience teaching or working in this institution, right? You want to you want to give them a sense of what the culture is like, what the environment is like, to show that it's very welcoming, it's very friendly, and things like that. And then we kind of then basically there are another 3 other parts that we do. The last part is usually what is the most interesting, because if we send someone through 5 different parts of our retargeting strategy, each between 3 days to a week, and it doesn't work, we usually ask them at the end of the whole sequence and give them a scenario where they are kind of at a crossroad and they can decide to go one way or the other. Which way would they take? And we usually get conversions from it as well. So it's pretty interesting for us to see that happening.
Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, and sequencing it out like that, it's very smart, and it's communicating from somebody who may not be aware of you to getting to know, like, and trust you. And do you early on try to capture email and start email marketing as well, sort of nurturing the back end kind of multi-prong approach, or?
Yeah, exactly. So all this remarketing actually works hand in hand with the emails. What I haven't talked about was the cold traffic stuff, which is kind of like the next part, where we generate leads and then we push those leads into an email sequence. But at the same time, they're also retargeted by this sequence. But for these sequences, we actually retarget people who are on the website. So basically it works hand in hand together.
And is I mean, I realize each business they're at a different stage in their life cycle. But if you're doing all these things, do you try to almost create earlier on like engagement versus conversion, and then you move closer to conversion? And are you trying to then sell products? And if that's the case, and it's stretched over, let's say, well, we have attribution of 28 days in Facebook, but let's say you go 45, 60 days. How do you track the attribution from the first sort of touch point through search, or maybe a retargeting through Facebook, and then a purchase 45 days out? I'm just asking some technical questions here, but I know you know.
Yeah,
curious.
No problems. Yeah, so when you do the retargeting sequence that we refer to are for people who only visited very high intent pages. So for example, for a school, it could be people who try to schedule an appointment, people who try to start an application, people who looked through the school fees, the tuition fees pages, and things like that. So we kind of classify and categorize the website into 2 different categories, high intent and all sorts of other intent. So the high intent will go through this particular sequence. The main thing is for us to capture all kinds of traffic that have visited this particular pages. We want them to know that, hey, so far you have done a lot of good work with SEO, with search engine marketing, with offline marketing, engagement, and stuff like that. And we're telling them that now what you're actually lacking is pushing those people to come and sign up and make a connection with you. And we can show you that Facebook is able to plug that gap. So from their point of view, Facebook might play kind of an assist value early on. But when we start running ads on Facebook and pushing them, into the lead forms and things like that, we actually send them into a CRM where we know when they opted in. And later on, we actually work with our clients to make sure that their statuses in terms of their enrollment process, the enrollment readiness are being updated in the CRM. And that's where we can capture them 3, 6, 9 months later. Because unlike a lot of different fields, the education institution field or the higher ed field is very similar to like real estate, where conversions happen between 3 months and a year. So usually you will not see any Facebook attribution for signups or enrollments apart from just signing up for an inquiry or for a callback.
I see.
So so it's really important early on for us to make sure that the form that they sign up on captures their name, their phone number, their email address, their course of interest, when they would like to study, and all the UTM parameters that it came from. We push it into the CRM database, and we do nurturing cycles with the emails. So every time they click on the email, we add additional tags to them, or we add additional UTMs to them, and then by the time they enroll, we can look back at their whole cycle and know what their customer journey looks like.
I see. That's seriously smart. In fact, this notion of tagging, I don't know how it is in your world, but a lot of the clients that we work with over the years, they understand the notion of tagging and passing parameters and whatnot, but they just don't do it. And so to have a team like yourself to come in and actually set it up right is just really refreshing. And Now, when you do this, tagging is important no matter what. But there are tools out there like Wicked Reports, which I've talked about on this broadcast before. Do you use things like that?
So we don't set up wicked reports for our clients, but if our clients do have wicked reports on Marketo or like a compelling CRM system that we can work around with, that's something we are more than happy to work with. Some of our clients use HubSpot and they have some certain sales tagging abilities as well. ActiveCampaign does the job as well. I think you will really need wicked reports when you come to multi-channel attribution and you have, like if you're running full-scale campaigns on Google, on Facebook, on Snapchat. I think that's where you really, really should have wicked reports to be able to find out what is the best way to allocate the media spend across all three channels.
Yeah, I agree. No, that's awesome. And just kind of backtracking a little bit to early stage as you were talking, because I forgot a point. Do you and this is also related to clients that you work with, but also somebody who might be starting out new, right, or fairly fresh. There's always a notion of budgeting, right? So how much should you assign to budgets, et cetera? Do you look at that as an entry point for starting, or are you willing and open to work with anybody? Meaning, I know in the industry, sometimes you'll hear consultants or agencies saying, well, our lowest budget is 50,000 a month or five or whatever it is. Is there a recommended budget or an assignment? Because if you're going to be spending dollars out the gate, sort of nurturing, educating, building know, like, and trust, and maybe there's very little conversion, there's a timeline, and executives starts to look for, hey, we talk about ROAS, but we really want to talk about ROI and lifetime customer value and things like that. How do you discuss with clients, and also how do you recommend somebody starting thinking about budgeting? That was a long question, but I think what I'm asking.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question. So we don't work with clients of all budgets. We do, however, have some background knowledge of what kind of budgets would work with a specific niche that we have experience with. So when it comes to education, we tell our clients that minimally you have to be spending $1,500 to $2,000 per program that you're trying to promote per month. So if they are starting to, let's say, like for example, right now, if anyone is doing marketing for higher ed institutions or education institutions, you wouldn't be driving enrollments for September. It's way too late. You would actually be aiming for January, basically the spring semester
next year.
And even the next main intake next year, which is around June or May or things like that. So that's really the goal. So when it comes to budgeting, like I mentioned, it's $1,500 to $2,000 per month for education institutions. For online courses that have working funnels, is usually around like 5 figures that we would spend. And when it comes to martial arts schools that we have started working with and started seeing some results, we realized that there are really, really local businesses that don't really require that much of a budget. So anywhere between $500 to $1,000 a month can get them pretty good students. Just in fact, a couple of days ago, we saw that we spent about $150 messenger ads that actually got about $3,000 in return for memberships for just martial arts school. So the kind of ROI they see is just very different. So in terms of budgeting, I think it really depends on what niche you're in. But really important to know, I think when it comes to developing your expertise in any particular niche, knowing what budgets work, knowing what offers work, super important, and knowing what are the key leverage points of leverage. Meaning to say that in the case of education, it's all about follow-up. In the case of martial arts and all that, it's also all about the sales process, follow-up, free trials and things like that. So you have got to figure out like, what is the sales process like? And the sales process has to be tight. If not, whatever marketing you do, it's just going to amplify the hole that they already have in sales. When it comes to education, we've worked with clients who we have generated thousands of leads for, and they are telling us, oh, do you mind calling them as well? Because we don't have manpower to call them. And then we were like, okay, we just generated tons of leads for you. They're interested in your program that you will make $15,000 or $20,000 per program, and you're not interested in calling them. And we were like, okay, it's like, what's going on? So we also have certain clients that are very disciplined. So what we do is we go into the sales lot, and we were able to see that the average enrollment takes about 3 to 6 calls before it happens. So it's not like I'm calling this person, oh, you're not interested? Okay, bye. Right? Like, that's not what a proper sales process looks like
Right.
for an education institution. And so just make sure you know exactly what is the sales process like in your niche. If not, you'll be taken advantage of. If not, there will be a lot of times where you seem to get great results on marketing, but why is it 3 to 6 months later there are no sales results? And there are a lot of people who will come back and blame you. Oh, the quality of leads suck, and like they expect hot leads. And it's entirely possible to produce hot leads, right? It's just that the costing and everything will be different. The way we approach it will be very different. So after generating cold leads, we will actually do emails, appointment setting, and all those things for them. And then we'll even do like remarketing on Google and all that stuff to make sure the leads are hot or hotter. But at the end of the day, even when you send a hot lead to them, they could still screw it up and tell you that the leads
Yeah,
are not good.
yeah,
Yeah. So
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and
the struggle.
yeah, no, that's such a great point right there. And business owners alike, I mean, whether you're new or more seasoned, sort of forget or conveniently forget, I should say. Yeah, there's a sales process. We have a similar client generating a lot of leads right now, and I spent a month just trying to figure out how their sales process works, and I think we're dialing it in. But if you ask somebody, hey, we can generate a lead for $100 CPL, or we can generate it for a $10 CPL. Of course, you're going to choose $10, right? But if we tell them it's going to be lower quality, you will still take the $10 CPL, right? And so that's, I think, just a human nature of sorts. But that's just some of the things that we see. But let me just kind of summarize what we have so far. So step number one is the retargeting and search and branding and going after that and start to build out the process that you described. And number two is really developing out more of that engagement through the retargeting and start building out kind of funnels, of course, along the way, tracking all the metrics and the KPIs and building out the tagging in the back end, the CRM, all the matching and stuff. What would be the third thing to really start really scaling up? If I can, summarize it that way, I'll let you answer that one.
Okay. Yeah, I would say when it comes to making sure the whole thing works together, of course you need to be setting up campaigns at the front to make sure you bring in traffic, leads. For majority of our clients, we actually don't even do the top of the funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel stuff. It's purely directly to lead gen, usually followed by bottom of the funnel retargeting or bottom of funnel stuff. So in very few cases we do like brand awareness videos and all that. We do have some of that going on for certain clients where we recognize that Facebook is more of an awareness builder for them. But for majority of the clients, it's really just getting them on taking the action and making sure to track all the way down to the end of funnel and making sure that it works. So when it comes to scaling it, I know there are a lot of people who are very, very excited about it, or they want to get results quickly. But what I usually tell my clients is, let's get all these things figured out first at a lower spend before we scale. Because if you don't have confidence and you scale, that's where you're going to burn yourself very quickly and you're going to start losing confidence in Facebook and whatever that we do. So it's super important. And what I realized a lot of times is some people would have one offer is working well and they try to scale and then it breaks after a while. It's very important as well that you have multiple offers that you can rotate. So that month one, you can do this, month two, you can do this, month three, you can run that. And you kind of alternate between them when you scale, so that, it's basically going to work a lot more sustainably for you as a business, because no business wants to make $70,000 this month and $7,000 next month. They all want $35,000, right? They prefer for it to be consistent so that they can plan out what the operations will look like.
Yeah, exactly. Now you mentioned, we talked about the retargeting and all that, and then of course building out these campaigns that work within the cold, warm, and hot traffic. Do you? I caught my one thing you said caught my ear. You mentioned lead ads. Do you use lead ads and conversion type campaigns?
Yeah. So the funny thing is we sometimes actually run landing pages and all that for the clients, and they work for majority of the programs, but sometimes lead ads work better for certain programs, and we have no idea why. We don't just run lead ads, we also run canvas and lead ads, which is basically canvas with a lead form at the end. And we find that they work for different programs and they work for different kinds of campaigns. So it's something that we see even within the same account, same geography, same age group, and they just work for different kinds of student population, or just for a different kind of program. So we test them whenever we see, let's say we launch campaigns for 3 different programs, and 2 of them generate leads between $10 to $20, and the last one generates leads for like $50. That's where we will pull that out and say, let's test lead forms and lead ads for this. And then usually the leads will come in at like maybe $5, $10, and we will be like, okay, it works. So let's use this format for this particular program. But in form of we always make sure that our client know what's going on, whether we are running it to a landing page or a lead form, and what the dangers are. So we always make sure to tell our clients that, hey, we're running to a lead form, you're going to get volume, but you're going to need to put someone on the back end to make sure that they set appointments immediately to pull these people through. And that's what they do. And it's not expensive to hire someone to set appointments. Like you could hire someone on Upwork, pay them $7 to $10 an hour, 1 hour a day or 2 hours a day for 30 days. That's probably going to work out to be $300 to $500 a month, and that would be able to help you make sure that all of the contacts are contactable, right? All of the leads are contactable, which is what all of us want. So just by doing that, it would really, really help to increase your lead quality, and especially if your clients are spending $3,000, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 a month, like $300 to $500 is honestly not much.
Yeah. And actually, Jason, I'm really excited about this because we work also with local businesses, and setting up lead ads and testing it, like you said, and also with conversion ads, conversion campaigns, I should say. Obviously, anything you do with testing that's smartly sort of applied is important, but the ability for getting, like what you said earlier was such key. It's basically this. Yes, you want quality leads. Yes, if it costs more, yeah, we'll take it, right? At least with a mature business owner that understands this and has systems and processes developed around this. But if it's early stage, and you as a consultant, maybe, and not necessarily you, but you, the person listening, watching as a consultant, you can bring in leads fast with lead ads, and you can hook them up to their CRM. Like we have one right now with Active Campaign. We're using Zapier to push it out to Google Docs, and they make quick comments. We also do SMS straight to their phone, so the team has that. And then you develop a process around that. Pretty amazing what you can do. And then you wrap an offer around that that's really strong, not a stupid offer, I'll just call it, but it's something real and that they want. That in itself can actually be a very profitable way to scale up quickly. And when I say scale up, meaning start out the gate quickly and then build from that, and then capture all those KPIs and start learning from it and building it out to more, perhaps, I should say, more involved sort of conversion campaigns and landing pages and copy and, email capture and things like that. Do you agree with that thinking?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's so right now we work with clients who, after working with 3 to 5 programs, they tell us, Jason, I want you to manage all 13, 20 different programs that we do. And it's crazy because it's a lot of work, and we tell them that some of the programs target the same demographic, the same group of people, and it might not work that well. So we tell them, you know what, let's not create landing pages for these people and incur unnecessary costs on your end. Let's just test them with lead ads. And if they work well, we'll create landing pages for them and we'll run them as per one of our, current programs. And then that way we were able to save a lot of money, not just for ourselves, but also for our clients, because they were able to save money on programs that basically aren't attractive, and be able to drop those from their program list. And I told them that, hey, if there is clearly no demand, there is no need for you to keep sustaining the program and keep it running and trying and struggle to fill out the minimum number of students you need for a class. You can drop the program and focus on the others and grow those as well.
Yeah. And do you find that, when you were out there talking to different clients, that we talked about the budgeting, and some of the sort of lower limits, and of course, the sky's the limit on that. But you as an agency, you have your fees. Do you typically have a baseline plus performance, or is it a hybrid model? I don't want you to reveal your pricing, but what's your general approach, and what do clients sort of feel about that?
Yeah, so we have with education clients, we have a typical retainer, just a typical retainer, because their budgets don't vary that much. They are not like some of online courses of financial institutions clients where they're spending $100,000 a month, for example. So the way we manage those spend of just for education clients is purely retainer. Whenever possible, just do retainers. Straightforward, keep it clean and keep it easy. With clients, they're scaling all the time, doing $10, $20, $30, and $1,000 a month at least, and upwards, we do a retainer that switches over to a percentage fee once we cross certain milestones. So above $20,000, for example, we change to a percentage fee, or no, above $30,000, it becomes a percentage.
Yeah, it's a percentage. Yeah. And just because we're talking, we've covered a lot of topics here. I'm going to get back to the Facebook thing in a moment. But as an agency, do you is there certain clients you absolutely don't want? I mean, because clearly there's the idea that you might have a client that has money, but it's just not a fit. Like, how do you determine that? Is there a niche or is it a category that you say, well, we just don't deal in real estate, or we just don't do this, or is it everything looked at sort of through your eyes about, is it really a fit for us and can we produce results?
Yeah, I think that's fundamentally the underlying factor. We would ask ourselves, hey, do we have confidence in doing this? And is this something that we're willing to try out? So in certain cases, like for example, when we started working in martial arts schools a couple of months ago, we asked ourselves internally whether that is something we are willing to take time to learn. Because what we do with our clients usually at the start, if it is something completely new, is we charge a lower fee, and then we tell ourselves that, hey, we are going to reinvest all the money we make from this client to learning how it works. So we might pay an expert for a consultation to look at the campaigns, to give us advice so that we can learn more quickly, and then we build out the processes in-house. I can't speak to the industries that we don't work with because there are dozens of industries that we don't actually work with. It would probably take half an hour for us to search that out. Yeah, but fundamentally, apart from just being comfortable and having confidence in the niche, we also look to our clients to see if they are willing to, or whether they have a proper sales system in place. So if sales is not the issue, I think it speaks well, because then traffic is the issue. We can easily solve it. If traffic is not the only issue and sales is also the issue, they must, be willing to put the work down, the money down, the resources down to fix it. Or if not, then, that's probably not going to work out for us. And we say, sorry, it would just end up being really frustrating for you, because you're going to have 100 people coming in, 10 potential clients, but because of the sales issues, you're going to only close one. And you're going to have issues because you're not going to be able to chase back the 9 people once you have lost them. And the last one is, we also try not to work with anyone who is like a know-it-all. I've spoken to some agency owners as well as business owners who say, oh yeah, I know this, I've gone through all these courses. I'm really, really advanced and I know all this, I just don't want to do it. And can you do it for me? And things like that. So we stay away from those, because we find that usually after working together, they start meddling in our affairs. Even when you get them good results, like they just keep wanting better and better and better and things like that. So so that's fundamentally what we go for, and we try to step away from clients with huge egos, basically.
Oh, this is great information. I mean, we've gone through so much here in about 45 minutes. Just to close out the sort of the Facebook trail, as we're trying to talk through that, one of the critical things, of course, through anything that you do online, is certainly through we started out with the retargeting, the brand search, Google, Bing, etc., and then into Facebook, retargeting, all of that, is how you track and report to, your internal team so that you're on target, and also create milestones and targets around that for the client. And then maybe it's a daily report, maybe it's a weekly update, maybe there's a Slack channel pushes, etc., etc. Is there a preferred way that I don't necessarily... I mean, you can feel free to talk about your way, but is there a way in the industry that you've seen that here's a great way that customers, clients, people you work with tend to prefer to get this data? And while there's a process around this, there's also this idea that even though some executives appear to have knowledge of data and understanding KPIs, and hey, I have an MBA, schooling background, et cetera, there's just a lot of education that needs to go on to understand a freaking report, right? So how do you deal with that, and what's your best approach to that?
Yeah, so I can't speak for the industry, but I'll definitely speak from my own experience. I've seen a dozen different kind of reports, and a lot of times clients send us reports from their agencies as well, and they're horrible, to say the least. To see how many agencies are, like, some of these are really big name agencies, and they're out there charging like $20,000 a month, and they provide clients with reports just based on cost per click. they don't report on any conversions at all. Just pains my heart, to be honest. Yeah. So where the way we do reporting, and the great question is because just yesterday we were reviewing our internal processes. As we are growing right now, we are also relooking at how we can cut down on the amount of time required to produce each report. But I will just share with you what we are doing right now and what we are looking forward to do, just in the next couple of days.
Yeah, great.
So on a daily basis, we have Supermetrics that actually pulls the data from Facebook into a spreadsheet, Google spreadsheet or Google Data Studio, and we create a PDF report in a table form that basically summarizes the results for every single particular offer that we have to our teams. So we have it set up for every single client. So imagine for every single client, you have one email sent out to the entire team telling you what the KPIs are, and what the ROS or the cost per leads are, and this is also showing like your performance over 1 day, 3 days, 7 days, 14 days, 30 days, so that everyone knows. Just from an overview at a glance, how the campaigns are doing. On a bi-weekly or monthly basis, depending on the clients or depending on the contract, we will also put together a 5-slider strategy review deck for our clients. So the first page is usually an executive summary telling them what has been done, what the insights are, and moving forward, what we will do. Then the second, third slide, fourth slide shows then the top performing ads, top performing audiences, and also some of the insights that we glean from a technical standpoint, if anything, any trends, any patterns. And then the last page discusses the forward plan. This particular slide deck usually takes between 1 to 3 hours to do for each client. And as you know, so far I've been doing it all on my own because I've been doing all of the client meetings on my own. And it's been a huge time sucker. So what we are really looking to do right now is we are looking into two tools this weekend: Suido and Agency Analytics, not affiliate plugs, by the way. I'm basically going to look into these two different platforms this weekend to figure out if there is a way of automating majority of the report so that I can only focus on developing the executive summary or just the forward plan, for discussion. And also, in the future, because we're also hiring more account managers. Right now we have only one, and in the future we want to standardize the report so that every account manager can produce their own reports, and make sure that they can communicate that with the clients as well. That's what we are working on.
That's great. Yeah, we use Suido.
Okay.
I've been using it for almost 1.5 years. It's great.
Nice.
Yeah, got a lot of experience with that. Yeah, okay. Well, you know what? This is awesome. In fact, I'm bringing up the Agency J screen here. I just wanted to ask you before we get into finding a little bit more about how we can reach you, or folks can reach you. What is sort of on a personal basis here? What is like the most fun that you have about being a business owner, Agency J? Being in this space in general. What is the thing that really drives you, or really just inspires you when you wake up at 4 a.m. each morning, or whatever you wake
up? So the interesting thing or thing we do is how our team. So for example, we have a remote team and we are able to hire some of the best people around, and it really makes me happy to know that we are able to create good jobs for people that allows them to do what they want in life. I have had like some of my team members who came on, and I was just talking to them and asking them, hey, what was your experience like so far? Is there anything I can do better to help you out or make your job easier? Because I have some of them who work really hard on their own. Sometimes they do work sometimes 10 to 12 hours a day. I'm not lying. And this is on their own accord, right? They wanted to finish it and do a good job.
Yeah.
And they tell me that, Jason, I've like a lot of my friends and I have been looking for such a job for a long time, and I tell my friends all the time about my this job of mine, and they tell me that I'm really lucky to have this job, and like this is really my dream job, and I'm really, really happy. And these are people working 10, 12 hours a day, and I'm like, wow. I was just lost for words during those team calls, and it just makes me really happy. Of course, apart from that, from a client's point of view, is usually when they grow and they tell us that, wow, like, I've been trying to crack this for so long. And for the longest time, you're trying to find a marketing agency that really cares about, what we do and what they do. Someone who we don't need to look over the shoulder or try to ping them 3 days, for 3 days just to get a reply, and they say that like it's just very refreshing for them to work with someone like that who actually doesn't just care about a retainer but really cares about getting results and ROI for them. So that's usually what we are really driven by, to be honest. And personally, for me, I also like to hear customer stories where, let's say, a particular student went through this particular program, and because of that, right now they were able to get a higher paying job, advance in their career, or finally get into a different career that they have been thinking of all the while but never had confidence to go into. And it all started because of our ads, and ended because the client had a good program that they could really rely on and eventually change their life. So we have just a handful of these stories so far because we haven't been in this space for that long and students are mostly still studying. But when we hear such stories, it really, really, really makes us happy.
Yeah, that's great. It says a lot about your organization and you as a leader and an authority in this space. So kudos to you for setting that trend. And yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's awesome. One question as we kind of tie this back, we're going to close out here in a few minutes. If you and I have this discussion again around sort of the digital space, business, entrepreneurship, hiring staff, life goal businesses, like a year from now, like we're in July 2020. What are some of the things that you see would have had happened to make things even more happy or inspiring in your world? It's a classic Dan Sullivan question. What are some of the things that you're looking forward to for this next 12 months?
Yeah, I think we are definitely looking forward to grow about 2 to 3 times our current size now that we have proper systems in place. Definitely going to have a bigger team. Definitely going to have better systems going on. Like I think I know it sounds boring, but I think these are the two main things that are going to be happen. We are also likely going to venture out into a few related relevant niche that are similar, but not entire education. So in the financial world, we're starting to work with credit cards companies and things like that. But we not only want to find angles that provide meaning at the end of the day. So hopefully we can explore 1 to 2 more industries that would really help us to diversify and be able to build a good team around, where there is also the ability to rotate team members after a while. If they're working in education for too long, and if personally they're too bored or they need a new challenge, we have the ability to move them around and give them a new challenge.
Yeah. And guys and girls, if you're going onto the website, Jason, I went on here too. You walk the talk. Your retargeting strategies are awesome, very personal, and straight up to Calendly. I love it.
Awesome. Yeah, exactly. And this website is going to be gone in a week's time. So if anyone's looking at it, this will be the last time you'll be looking at it. And then next week we'll have a new website coming out soon.
Yeah, and also, Jason, I know that you have the advertisers den. Is that something that's still active?
No. So actually, as of a couple of months ago, we decided to shut it down. There are a couple of reasons for it. So we mentor about 60 people, and a lot of them have grown beyond $10,000 a month, $20,000 a month. The reason why we are shutting it down is because we weren't able to provide the level of support that would be required to make this much, much, much better, or like the ideal state. So when they all quit, I told them that there are 3 different memberships that they could consider joining. The number 1 is FATC, just because of how much support they have.
Yeah.
Number 2 is I think the Nicholas Kuzmich Council, and number 3, I think it belongs to I forgot their name. Those guys who are hosting the Perpetual Traffic podcast, Keith Kranz, and I think they have a membership going on as well. So I told them to look into it.
Ralph Burns.
Yeah, Ralph Burns and Keith Grant, and I think they have a membership going on. And I told them that like these are some of the 3 memberships I would consider going into. And I think it was just at the end of the day weighing out the opportunity cost and me telling them that like I have given you everything that you need basically to get off the ground. But for you to grow to where you are right now, to really figuring out what your life goals are, proper business systems and everything, you probably need to look for a proper mentor.
Right. Yeah, and that shows integrity and honesty around the brand. People really appreciate that, and this has been just phenomenal, Jason, to get this interview off the ground, and tons of great takeaways. I'm going to be putting a bunch of links in the show notes too. But really, what's the best way to get people to reach you?
Yeah, I think the best way to reach me is just send me an email, jason@agencyj.co. It's
Oh,
.co and not .com. So just make sure it's .co.
agencyj.co. Okay,
Yeah.
great. And of course, just out on Facebook, I know you have Ask Jason How. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, hey, this has been absolutely phenomenal. This is a great interview. Any final sort of takeaways or things that you would mention as a final tip or a thought about, if somebody's wanting to, grow their business, whether it's within the educational training or just, hey, I'm a brand new sort of consultant, if you will, somebody who's starting out that's maybe trying to get into the business. Pick or choose whatever you think as a final takeaway.
Yeah, I think very importantly is never work alone and try to stay plugged into the community. So go for offline events, networking sessions, things related to industry. Make sure you stay plugged in to the industry and talk to people all the time. Get to know people. There are so many different ways that you could help each other out and develop win-win collaborations. The other one is keep listening to the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Podcasts are great. It's really awesome, and especially this one, Media and Marketing, with such incredible
Exactly.
talent like Jason here today. It's just been phenomenal coming in live from Singapore and Los Angeles here. I really appreciate your time, and I'm going to end this broadcast, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye-bye. Take care.
All right, see you.